Welcome to SADTU Online Television. I'm your host, Musa Mabesa. Today we are discussing an important topic that affects your pensions. As we start, let me say the Government Employee Pension Fund implemented updated actuarial interest factors with effect from the 1st of October 2025. These factors are derived from the assumptions adopted in the fund's recent statutory actuarial valuation as at the 31st of March 2024. This has prompted a flurry of concerns from members and public servants in general, with some posting on social media platforms complaining that the values of their pension funds, their resignation benefits, are or have been reduced. On our show today, we have invited the Principal Executive Officer of the GEPF, Mr Musa Mabesa, to unpack what these revised actuarial interest factors mean to you as a member, whether you are planning to retire or you are planning to resign. He will also assist us to simply understand these actuarial factors. Welcome to SADTU Online Television, Mr. Mabesa.
Thank you very much for inviting me and for having me on your show, Comrade Musa. I'm happy to be here to share what these actuarial interest factors are and how they impact members' benefits.
Our members, as well as many public servants, are concerned that their pensions are being reduced. There are many factors related to this or causing this. But first, let us start from the beginning. What are actuarial interest factors? Because we understand that they are the ones that are causing these things.
Before I answer it, I would like to remind members how the GEPF calculates pension benefits for members as promised in the GEP law, the Government Employees Pension Law. We work out the members' retirement benefits using a simple formula. It's the number of years of service that you've had whilst contributing to the GEPF, the average of your last 2 years' salary, multiplied by an accrual rate, which is the rate at which your pension is expected to grow, or you're supposed to earn, the rate at which you will earn a pension going into the future. Now, if a member chooses to leave the fund before retirement, which means you're either resigning or you die in service with less than 10 years of service, the GEPF will need to work out how do we calculate what we have promised to pay you at retirement, but we need to pay it out to you today, even though you have not retired. So you need to get the equal value of what your pension benefits are today when you resign, for example, as opposed to in the future where we've promised you a pension, which is a gratuity, the lump sum, and the annuity, your monthly pension. So the actuaries, what they do is they need to then work out this actuarial interest factor, which allows the GEPF to work out for all different ages of our members what is today's value of your promised pension benefits, because we do not have your retirement pension benefits as you are leaving the fund early. So in simple terms, this actuarial factor seeks to work out what is the value of R1 of salary over a 1-year service period today. This factor then allows the fund to apply this actuarial interest factor to different members at different points when they leave the GEPF before retirement. It's a simple way of bringing forward today's value of a promised benefit in the future. I hope I've tried to explain it in a better way than using actuarial language.
However, there seems to be a complaint whether members are only noticing now that this has had a negative impact on their pensions or on their savings. Does it change over time? Why was it different? Like, for instance, 3 years or 6 years ago, why is it different now?
Thank you for that question. So the GEPF is a defined benefit fund, meaning your benefits are guaranteed in terms of the law, which is the Government Employees Pension Law.
Then one day it says you have saved less than what you thought you had saved. What has really caused the reduction in the money that members have?
So maybe let me also clarify that this savings is not similar to putting money away at the bank on a monthly basis. As a defined benefit fund, the GEPF promises to pay you a pension at retirement based on that formula I explained. So the number of years of service and your average salary for the last 2 years before retirement is very important to work out how much a member will receive as a lump sum and their monthly pension for the rest of their life. It's not how much you've put in. So that is very important to clarify. Hence, the value that you see today as an estimate for you leaving the fund early can change. Let me use a practical example of what I'm saying. If the GEPF says every month a member accrues, and I'll use 10 liters of petrol as an example. If every month you work, you accrue 10 liters of petrol, and we can equate that to years of service. So as you're working, you accrue 10 liters of petrol. After 10 months, you've got 100 liters of petrol. And if petrol is 20 Rand per liter, it means the value of your benefit at the end of 10 months is 200 Rand. Now, if in month 11, where you now have 110 liters of petrol, you've accrued an extra 10 liters of petrol, and the petrol price decreases from 20 Rand to 18 Rand. What does that mean? It means the value, you still have 110 liters of petrol, but it will not be worth the same as the previous month when you still had 110 liters of petrol, 100 liters of petrol after 10 months. But you still get 110 liters of petrol, but the value of the price of petrol has decreased. Why has it decreased? Because there are issues around demand and supply of oil globally. Demand and supply in the GEPF instance will be the assumptions I spoke about. If there's changes in any of those economic assumptions or demographic assumptions, it will change the price at which we value your benefits. I hope I've tried to explain it very well. You still get the promised benefits, but the price today might be different because you are leaving early.
If one is taking a pension, if one is resigning, how are these people affected? One who is resigning and one who is going on retirement. Like those who are resigning are being penalized. More money has been taken from that. Can you explain the two?
Again, maybe to clarify, the intention of a pension fund is to save for retirement. So the promise has been made that when you retire, we will calculate your pension based on the formula I shared earlier. So if you wait until retirement, there will not be any change in what has been promised. However, if you resign, we will need to pay you your pension benefits today before retirement, but to ensure that it's based on today's price to work out the benefits. So that is the difference. If you stay in the fund, you will get all your benefits at retirement. If you leave early, the GEPF must pay you the equal amount as of today of your benefits, because the risk of not paying you what the value of your pension is today is that we might pay members who leave through resignation, for example, much more than what their pensions are worth today, which means when other members retire in future, there will not be enough to cater for those members who have remained until retirement. So this is to ensure that there is fairness in the calculation of members' entitlements in the GEPF at all times.
I have a question from one of our members. This is Pikolom Zikasha, a branch secretary from Dr. A.S. Nuku branch in the Eastern Cape. I want to ask, are the penalties excluded now for people who are leaving before 60 years or not? Reason for this question was that was a correspondent and circular saying no penalties. When you are retiring before age of 60, either 55, are the penalties now excluded?
How I understand that question, it is separate from actuarial interest factors and early exit or withdrawal from the fund, either through resignation, for example. What the member is referring to is the early retirement without penalty scheme that was announced through the circular.
Yes.
So it's separate from actuarial interest factors. And what that means is subject to the employer's approval, a member can leave the fund without being penalized. So you leave as though you have reached retirement age, even though you have not, because the employer will then make up for the difference between what you have contributed and earned as service to date to the point of retirement. So these are two separate matters, but then that circular speaks to the early retirement without penalty scheme that is introduced by the employer, subject to the employer's approval.
Some people were saying perhaps the reduction in their savings has got to do with the two-pot system that was introduced a year ago. Is it a fact or is it a myth? Can you explain whether there is any link between the two-pot system and this?
It is not correct. There is no link between the two-pot system and actuarial interest factors. As indicated earlier, the GEPF once every 3 years conducts a statutory actuarial valuation from which we have the actuarial interest factors that we use to calculate benefits before retirement. The two-pot system was introduced last year, September, which seeks to split a member's pots into 3 pots. I won't explain the two-pot system in this response, but it seeks to split a member's retirement savings to create a savings pot. What the factors do is they will impact what a member can see and access today in the savings pot in the calculation, but it is not as a result of the introduction of two-pot.
Can one say that if one retires now, one cannot vouch that what was promised when one joined will be exactly what one will get at the end of the day?
So when a member retires, what was promised will be kept by the fund. And what I mean by that is that formula I shared with you. We will use the number of years that you've had of service, multiply that by the average final salary over the last 2 years before retirement, multiplied by this accrual rate, which is the rate at which you will earn a pension going forward. So that promise will not change if you retire.
What leads to benefits being higher or lower?
We will need to express the value because we don't know how much a member is withdrawing. We will need to express that amount that is in their savings pot in terms of years of service. We'll need to convert that amount into years of service in order to reduce a member's years of service. So it depends on how much is in a member's savings pot in order to work out how much to reduce in terms of years of service. So we must work out how much years of service at that particular point in time. If you have 15 years of service and it's worth 1,000 Rand, if you are going to take out 100 Rand, it means we need to reduce a proportionate number of years that is equivalent to 100 Rand. It's difficult to work it out without real numbers that a member can be shown, but depends on members' circumstance and what they have in their savings withdrawal account.
Alpheus Mephius Mongale, he's got 3 questions. The first is, what is the projected impact on the replacement ratio for members retiring versus in the future?
There is no impact on the replacement ratio because based on the factors. The factors, as explained in my previous example, allow us to value your benefits before you retire and express it in today's price. So it will not affect the replacement ratio.
How is inflation incorporated into the actuarial projections?
I indicated that there are economic assumptions. So the economic assumptions will also assume what inflation will behave like going into the future. So that's part of the assumptions that are made at the rate at which inflation will be growing into the future. So the actuaries will look at that once every 3 years, and that will also impact what the factors are ultimately.
Discount rate is being used, and how does it compare to the previous rate?
So the discount rate that is used is the rate of return. If I indicated what the actuaries predict our investments are going to give back in returns, or the interest if it was money in the bank, that is what we use as the discount rate to work back what is today's value of a member's investments. In 2021, the factors that came back were different. Some were higher, some were lower, based on the different demographic assumptions and the assumptions that had been made in 2021, which then makes it difficult to compare one period to the next. But the rate of return is higher in 2024 as opposed to what was assumed in 2021.
Tulufelo Nwekane is saying, how does one calculate the penalties? What formula is used to calculate the deductions that will be imposed?
So it's effectively 4% each year before the age of 60. That would be the penalty calculation.
We have Mike. Mike says, if you say the early retirement without penalties depend on the employer's approval, what could be the reasons that could lead to the employer not approving early retirement without penalties?
Without speaking on behalf of the employer, obviously affordability, because the employer will need to pay the GEPF the accelerated contributions to make up for leaving early, but as though you had retired at the normal retirement age. But I can't speak for the employer. When I said subject to the employer, because the employer will have to pay the GEPF or the liability that is due to it for a member leaving early without a penalty. So that penalty is covered by the employer and not the member. So the employer will need to make good or give the GEPF the value of what would have been a member's penalty for leaving early, but the member is then not penalized, and the employer pays GEPF that money so that the member leaves as though they had reached retirement age.
One of the concerns from members, when they were raising their concerns, was that, as union members, they were saying we're not consulted. How can this thing happen without us being part of it? Can you explain the process, of saving members' pensions? Is it a matter that is put on the table? Is it a matter that is up for consultation? How does it all work?
The GEP law requires that whenever there's a change in actuarial interest factors, the GEPF must consult with employee organizations, which are labor unions. So once the GEPF, once it has completed the statutory actuarial valuation once every 3 years, with the outcome also including the statutory actuarial valuations, the statutory factors, what the GEPF does is it writes to all the employee organizations or the unions, attaching the statutory valuation report as well as the actuarial interest factors, asking that labor organizations comment on the factors, but also those that require the GEPF to take them through that report on what has been done, which is some of the things I was explaining earlier around assumptions and how these factors are calculated. The GEPF does that. The GEPF then, if there are comments, will engage with those comments from employee organizations. And if there are no objections, the GEPF will then go ahead and implement these factors.
And as we end the show, we are going to focus on the questions from our members. The first one is from Njabulo Bongani Dube. Njabulo says, my vested component was 585,000, decreased to 440,000. Why you did not tell us before we take it? We take it. It's unfair. You guys are chewing our money.
Firstly, maybe let me indicate that the GEPF communicated the upcoming changes to the statutory, well, the factors, actuarial factors, following the statutory valuation that was conducted. However, we did not take members' money. So the quoted value that a member sees now is based on the assumption that a member will leave now. If a member stays until retirement, the benefit that has been promised, because all the pots will then be combined together at retirement, they will be paid out at the promised rate. So right now it appears as though money has disappeared from a member's vested pot, but it has not disappeared. So if a member stays until retirement, they will get the full benefits as promised in the law based on the number of years of service.
Heswind has the following questions. Will members be penalized when they leave within 10 years of experience? And what benefits will they lose? What benefits will they get? And how much of their investment will they get?
So, as if you remember, guaranteed pension benefits at retirement will need 10 years or more of service. So where a member has less than 10 years of service, we will apply these actuarial interest factors to work out today's price of value of their benefits. So it's not a penalty. Members will be paid what their benefits are worth today using today's values or price as an example that was used earlier on. So it's not a penalty. It's working out what today's value of a member's benefits are. If a member stays until retirement and they have more than 10 years, we are going to use the number of years of service as well as the last average salary over the last 2 years to work out their benefit. So there will not be any penalty per se. The member will get their full benefits if they stay on to retirement with more than 10 years of service. Actuarial factors will not be used at that stage.
Can you emphasize the issue of people thinking that they are being penalized, the issue of people thinking that their money is being taken away? Can we go over that again?
I can confirm no member is being penalized. What actuarial interest factors seek to do is to allow that we pay a member their resignation benefits or exit benefits before retirement, paying them a fair amount within the fund at the time they exit the fund because they're not retiring. If they were going to retire, these factors would not impact members at all. What factors seek to do is to give you today's value or price of your benefits as at today because you are not retiring. We know that at retirement we've promised you a certain benefit based on that calculation. If you leave earlier, we must pay you what it's worth today using today's prices in trying to be equivalent to the factors and the assumptions that we used to work out those factors. So no member is being penalized. Those that leave early or resign or leave the fund before retirement will get what their benefits are worth today based on the prices or the factors that have been worked out to work out a member's benefits today. But if a member stays until retirement, a member will get their full benefits and there will not be any reduction or increase depending on where these factors end up after each valuation date.
If our economy was in good stead or was it growing, would this have an impact on what the members get at the end of the day?
Based on these calculations, it's the opposite. The economy has been growing and our investments, which are invested in different assets, have been doing very well. Hence, these factors have caused this reduction in quoted values for members who exit before retirement. Currently, like I indicated when we started, our investments are returning much more money at a faster rate, which means we need to hold less funds or less money for a member who leaves today. So if the economy continues to perform, the GEPF needs to hold less money because that money is going to grow at the same rate, higher rate that the economy is growing on or our investments are growing at, to give them that promise at retirement. So that is it's almost working opposite to what the member has said. So if the economy does well and our investments do well and they return more money for members, it means the benefits if they leave before retirement will be lower because as projected towards their retirement, those investments will grow at a higher rate, meaning the little money we hold today will grow at a higher rate to ensure we pay members what they require at retirement. The opposite is also true. So if our investments do not grow at a fast rate because the economy is not doing well, we will need to hold a higher value for a member. And if this would have happened with the latest valuation, members would have seen an increase in the values in their statements on resignation benefits, including those benefits in the vested pot as well as the savings pot, because we would need to hold more money for a member today, and knowing that the economy and our return on the investments will grow at a slower rate, much lower rate, we need more money today to ensure that we meet the promise at retirement. It takes some time to understand the inverse relationship between the two, because we've promised a benefit at retirement, not necessarily an amount. And that's why it matters whether the investments are growing at a higher rate, much faster rate, means we must set aside less money for a member today to meet that benefit promise at retirement.
So as we close, can you share with members that their money or their savings are safe with the GEPF?
Based on the 2024 statutory actuarial valuation, the actuaries certified that the fund is healthy and it is 119% funded. What does that mean? It means for every R1 that the GEPF has to pay as a promise to members in future, there is R1.19 available to cover those benefits. That 19 cents additional, in other words, allows the GEPF a cushion in the event that these other economic factors were to materialize based on the assumptions that I've indicated. But the fund is healthy. The fund has not lost members' monies, and members have not lost monies based on the estimates showing on their benefit statements using the actuarial interest factors, which indicate a member's current benefits today and not what is payable at retirement. So members' money are safe and the fund is healthy.
Thank you for that informative and enlightening presentation or discussion with you, Mr. Mabesa. We hope our members have a better understanding of how the GEPF or how their pensions are looked after. We hope you will bear with us in future when you call you again when members or whenever members have issues around their pensions.
The GEPF, myself and my colleagues will always avail ourselves to interact with yourselves and our members. Thank you.
Let's awaken the masses and disrupt the status quo. We are the champions of change, mobilizing the consciousness and uniting revolutionary professionals in strengthening foundational learning and functional skills to advance inclusive and sustainable economic growth in pursuance of a socialist society, leaving no one behind. Be part of history. Together, we'll shape a world where education isn't just a privilege, it is a revolution. We can be the catalyst for change.